Hey, college football fans, I'm Ivan Mazel. On the latest Championship Drive podcast, we finally got chaos in college football, and we're here to break it all down for you. Subscribe to us in the Listen tab of your ESPN app.
This is the best of the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugatz podcast.
Finally, some good football this week, and reminding you that you've been watching sewage for a while now. Not just the late games, but all of college football. Even I've been exasperated by all the missed extra points and the idea of giving kickers yet more power when they're not actual football players, and I don't want them to have more power. But even that yesterday, an extra point ended a game in a way that was exciting, even though a clumsy Bronco stepped out of bounds and the referees didn't catch the stepping out of bounds somehow. But I want to ask you this question. We were talking during the local hour. We do a local hour here before we do the national hour, national 3 hours. And we were talking about some drive in the Minnesota game that went 15 plays, 51 yards. And Chris Whittingham here just sent me a note saying that the Panthers yesterday had something happen that hasn't happened in football in 18 years. A 20-play drive that resulted in a punt.
Yep.
And so what I wanted to ask you guys is, because the late games yesterday was so much fun, Pittsburgh and Dallas going back and forth, Seattle and New England going back and forth, where it was good football, where you knew they were good teams. You know those are good teams.
Dolphins, Chargers, exciting game.
Well, but never mind that. I don't know that those are good teams.
Okay.
I know that was an exciting game, and It was fun, but it was also sloppy. It was Phillip Rivers throwing a career high in interceptions. Seattle and New England and Dallas and Pittsburgh, those are teams you respect as good football playing teams. And what I wanted to ask you, though, is do you think it's a coincidence in a sample size of 4, small sample, that those games were produced by the coaches who can do it fearlessly because they've all got stability and tenure and they're locked in with management? All 4, they were doing things in those games, even though Pittsburgh was missing all of its 2-point conversions.
They were going for them.
You got Pete Carroll at the end of a game, and I love this. Even Belichick is on the sideline. Why are they going for 2 here? And it's because he wanted to finish them by getting a 9-point lead, by making it a 2. He wanted to finish them, and they failed. But I thought it was so great that he tried. And it's because those guys, the league is plagued by fear-based coaches. Like, for example, something I saw yesterday, and I made fun of Mike Zimmer a couple of weeks ago because he called his offensive line soft. They're not soft, they're bad. They're not soft. But so Mike Zimmer calls his offensive line soft. And then Mike Zimmer gets a 3rd and short, and they don't get it, and it's a 4th and an inch in his own territory. And what does he do? Big, tough Mike Zimmer. He runs out there and tries to get him with cadence. I'm going to trick you guys now. I'm not going to actually go for it on 4th and an inch. You know it. So I'm just going to go hard count, hard count. The only thing hard about my team is to count. And then doesn't fool anybody, and then he goes out there with his shriveled up grapes and punts. But you've got so many coaches who are playing afraid.
Yep. And those 4 aren't. It's a good point. I mean, they're just not. I mean, Jason Garrett, the other 3 have reasons. I don't know how Jason Garrett gets away with it, but he has job security.
Well, he's got stability. He's got job security because his owner believes in him, and his owner's the actual coach, and he's a puppet. But at least he knows he's got his job.
Right.
And so you could play the game because these coaches, so much of this, I marvel at the idea that in this league where these leaders are always preaching toughness and accountability, when it comes to them being tough and accountable, they just go copycat. And so anyways, my larger point is the way that you get at this place where you've got 20 play drives that end in a punt is these coaches are terrified of turnovers. So they don't throw the ball down the field because that's where turnovers happen. Brady hadn't thrown an interception all season. When did he get intercepted last night? When he's throwing the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. There's danger down the field. It's risk-reward, and these guys don't want the risk, so they don't risk the reward. And you get these, because there were a lot of those drives all over the sport yesterday, even on a great football day.
Yep.
15 plays, 50 yards.
I mean, 15 plays, 50 yards 10-plus minutes, no points. And as we discussed in the local hour, the Redskins had 2 of those type drives that both resulted in field goals.
But I'm saying that is part of the reason your ratings are down. And that's part of the reasons that the late games last night seemed so much fun, because you're like, oh, look, people trying to take risks. Mm-hmm. People not being totally afraid, sphincters shriveled up because they're so afraid of turnovers, and everything they want to do is 2 and 3 yards.
And I love the no call. Like, you're always, that's, Dan, for me, the thing that bothers me the most is you're just waiting around for a flag. You can't really actually celebrate or play or discuss until you realize if there's a flag or not. And last night, that final play in the Patriots game with Gronk and Earl Thomas, there was no flag thrown. And I enjoyed that. Like, just let them play football.
Oh, and that's the height of athleticism.
Yes.
And if you were going to call a penalty, it should have been on Gronk.
Yes.
But you've got Cam Chancellor. He's a pterodactyl, and he can't cover Gronk either, because no human being roaming this earth can, and no pterodactyl roaming this earth at any point during our history has been able to cover that thing, that polar bear they've trained to catch balls in New England. But that was fun to watch, the height of athleticism jostling for the ball. How about this? The Patriots always get that yard.
Always.
Always.
Yep. That's 4 Brady sneaks right there.
The Patriots always get that yard. Texter writes in here, not only is Dan always wrong, he's always obnoxiously wrong. Have a good show. What am I obnoxiously wrong about? What am I wrong about? What am I obnoxiously wrong about? Is it that I said the Chargers were going to smoke the Dolphins? Is that what you're referencing?
I'm guessing, yeah.
I'm not wrong about my analysis of football yesterday. The reason that football felt so good is at least in part because the football's been so bad.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you're pointing to the 4 o'clock game, the 8 o'clock game. You had a number of good games in the 1 o'clock games as well.
The weekend was a good weekend of football, but one of the reasons you noticed it is because every weekend before that has been a cruddy weekend of football.
Yep.
And part of it is being plagued by this Carolina Panthers 20-play drive ends in a punt. You got a whole quarter of football. How long was that drive? 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10-plus minutes.
You got a whole quarter of football that's ending in a punt. and one of the teams being rewarded by playing that way is the Chiefs, who are now in their last 20 games in the regular season, 18-2. They love that style. Alex Smith doesn't want to throw it down the field. Because why? They're bad things down the field. They're not good things down the field. The idea, there is nothing good 30 yards down the field.
Nope.
The way that Alex Smith looks at life.
Yes.
There's nothing good 30 yards down the field. There's only horror and mayhem and death.
And Kelsey's so close to him. I mean, he's just right there.
Yeah, Kelsey's big. And you could just sort of hand it off to him by throwing it overhand.
There was a play yesterday where Kelsey was wide open, totally uncovered, but he was 30 yards down the field.
Yep.
Alex Smith didn't even look his way.
Of course not. You don't even need to guard anything over there. It's like Atlantis. Alex Smith looks down there and is like, that doesn't really exist 30 yards away. Everything, my entire world is here. And that's the one that, by the way, I'm making fun of him, but I shouldn't be. At one point yesterday, I saw that the Texans were winning 14-10, and Osweiler was 3 of 4 for 19 yards late in the second quarter. Like, you paid $70 million for that.
Oh, man.
Macklin's like the one deep threat Kansas City has.
Oh, Macklin so regrets.
But he was out yesterday, and Alex Smith was like, sweet.
No, Macklin so regrets signing over there.
But he's happy when he's out. That's funny.
He sees the injury report. Sweet, yes.
No, Macklin.
Woo!
I mean, Tyreek Hill had 10 catches for 89 yards for the Chiefs. One of them was 27 yards.
Oh,
he ran,
what was it, a bubble screen?
Yeah,
bubble screen?
26 were yak.
Yeah. He threw it -3 yards, and then they love those bubble screens, too. I can't be the only one exasperated by that. I shouldn't be complaining about it because those 2 games last night were huge, huge fun. Pittsburgh, Dallas. I mean, just 2-point conversion, and they missed on all of them. but just keep going for 2-point conversion. In fact, I'd be totally okay with the theoretical idea of eliminating the kicker entirely. Be totally okay with it. I mean, they're moving it that way anyway. I don't like the rule change that allows these extra points to matter more. I want them to matter less.
Correct.
I want them to all be guaranteed, even as that Denver Saints game ended on one of those.
But the idea behind it, in part, is to incentivize teams going for 2, and you just have so many cowards out there.
That's another thing, though. But I do believe the point stands that what you saw in those late games is coaches who are not afraid. They have confidence in their people. They have confidence in their job security. And so they could go out there, and it's not even that they're being that brave. They just look brave because they're surrounded by cowards.
Dan Le Batard.
Greg Robinson with us. Are you distracted? Because this happens sometimes with you when you come on with us. I feel like you've got a little bit of ADD. During radio interviews, maybe only. Are you distracted? What's happening? Are you doing that Pineapple Express thing where sometimes you float off because you're smoking that Chiba?
Stugats.
No, I'm not distracted.
Okay, very good.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
Catch me and Mike Golick Jr. every Sunday for Weekend Observation, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Should Dan explain it? Yes or no? Because I got a lot of people who are worried about me. Deeply, deeply worried about me. Should Dan explain it? The texters during the local hour were right when they said that this would fool a lot of people. This tweeter is not right when he writes in. Well, he's right factually, but he's not right philosophically. Chiefs are 7-2, tied for first place in the AFC. Move along, gas bag.
You don't get the show.
All right. Good luck winning with that in the playoffs. Good luck winning with that 3 yards at a time in the playoffs. You're the only good thing on Andrew Luck's resume in the playoffs. The Chiefs aren't actually good. They're just super disciplined, and they're better at 3 yards at a time than anybody else.
Before the Vultures get you, Andrew Luck did win at Denver. Beat Peyton Manning. Surprise.
Good point.
Thank you.
Yep.
So at Le Batard Show is how you reach the show. We've got our useless sound montage here in a second. Mike, should I explain this or not? What would be your vote? What would be the vote in the room, the shipping container filled with frightened refugees? Yes or no, I should explain this?
I say no.
Roy?
No.
No. No.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
You so badly want to explain it, though.
Well, I'm just getting a lot of texts of concern. So just ESPNU, check it out. ESPNU is where you look. Some of you will get it, some of you won't. We've got a useless sound montage for you, and it was a rough week for poor Billy. Rough week. Pagano and Luck with buys.
Oh.
McAdoo hasn't played yet, so he hasn't given us any sound. We really needed some other people to step up this week. Mike, did anyone step up for you? Did anyone step up for you guys?
Oh, yeah. Last week, we were in a similar situation with Mike Tomlin on a bye, but he's back.
Okay.
And he's here to win the day.
All right.
No one takes losses harder than Mike Tomlin.
Okay. Is he the origins of Defend Every Blade of Grass, or is that Gruden? Who's responsible for the defending of every blade of grass?
You know what? Stugats mentioned the Gruden thing last week, but 2 weeks ago, I heard Tomlin use it, I believe, in one of these.
All right. So the useless sound montage is very popular, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a bunch of people saying nothing. Russell Wilson's on here. He could be on here every week. Is he the league leader among players in saying nothing?
Amongst quarterbacks.
Yes.
I mean, what do you mean? If you're the league leader among quarterbacks at useless sound, then you are the league leader among all players.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Among players.
Yeah.
I'd say in sports.
Yeah.
I'd go across sports. I wouldn't just make it football.
Yeah,
Russell Wilson is the league leader across sports in not saying anything ever.
Yeah. I mean, players division probably. But don't come with that nonsense around Chuck Pagano, because he will chop the wood.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, he will. He will be wearing ear muffs and blinders, and he will chop the wood. Russell Wilson, by the way, did say something once when he claimed that vitamin water was helping him cure concussions. There was that one thing that he said that one time for a corporate sponsor. That one ridiculous thing.
The most interesting thing he's ever said?
I think so, yes. Put that up on the poll, Guillermo, as well. Is that the most interesting thing Russell Wilson has ever said? Let's go. We got useless sound montage. We got Dan Quinn. We got Ryan Tannehill. He's usually pretty good for some useless sound. We got some Gus Bradley in here. We won't be hearing from him very much longer. I mean, right?
Why are we still hearing from Gus
That's
Bradley?
an excellent question.
Amazing that we're still hearing from him.
14 and 43 or something like that for his career.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McCarthy gives us some useless sound. We won't be hearing from him much longer either, I don't think. Who else is on here we won't be hearing much from? Let me see here. Who do we have? Okay. No, that about covers it.
Everyone else is safe.
Yeah, everyone else is safe. Let's go ahead and hear. Bill Belichick is pretty good for some useless sound as well. What do we got?
I know I made a statement before, I'm not playing musical chairs. I wasn't playing musical chairs today.
Whatever it takes to win, that's what we do. We try to do that. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out, but 6 times this year it has worked out, and 3 times it hasn't.
We just got to do better.
Just not enough discipline and detail in our play to be victorious. It's not mystical. It ain't okay. We won't accept it. We can't accept it.
That's what the pass rushers live for, is guaranteed passing situations, where they can just pin their ears back and go.
I think, the defensive line would like to get a chance to pin their ears back and get that rush going.
If you win one, you move on. If you lose one, you move on.
We were expecting a 60-minute game, and it sure was. They got a lot of good players, and, they make you earn every yard. And that's what I respect about that team.
It takes experience and guts and grit and all the good stuff.
Compliment the Cowboys on finishing the game.
Feels good, to finally get over that hump, get the monkey off our back, and to pull one out in the end like that.
In terms of the style and the attitude and the effort and the toughness, we're improving in the way that we want to ball hawk.
We need to start 1-0 in the second half of the year, and we've accomplished that goal.
This team finds a way to win. That's what you want to have, is a team that whatever it takes will find a way to win, and that's what we have right now.
We dug ourselves a huge, huge hole.
Football is a game of momentum, so you certainly want to capture the momentum and keep it, and if you lose it, which you're bound to lose at some point, try to fight like crazy to get it back.
And that's the nice thing about this football team. They don't panic. We don't necessarily make every play, but we never panic.
I remind them, every game this year we've been leading and we've been trailing. Today's no different.
Whatever our record is, it's not good, but yet we have a locker room full of winners.
Splash. They made the splash plays. We didn't make enough of them.
Hold on a second. Hold on. A number of things that I've got to object to here. First of all, was that Jay Gruden who said on every play this year we've been leading or trailing?
Yep.
Okay, is he forgetting that he tied a game?
Yep.
Is he still confused by that tie situation?
Yes, he's never been the same since.
Okay.
Yep.
He's still confused by that. Can we get to the roots of pinning your ears back? Why is someone pinning their ears back? When are you? I know what the saying means, but what is the origin of the saying? Do horses race with their ears pinned back to be more aerodynamic? Like what? In fact, put that on the poll as well, Guillermo, please, at Batard Show. Do you know the origins of why someone would pin their ears back?
I'm on it.
And I got a great thing for you here. We're going to come up with it next here, but a great thing for you on what I think it was Kirk Cousins said about momentum and the idea of momentum. Something happened in one of the games yesterday that was uproariously funny that runs counter to the idea of momentum.
Hey, buddy, shut up. It's time to make the sponsors happy.
I would say it's a universal fact that we all do our jobs better when we're comfortable. Except I work with Stugatz, and I'm so hugely uncomfortable right now. Look at how comfortable he is while wearing his pair of Tommy John underwear, doing his job 1% more worse. Tell them more about Tommy John, Stugatz.
We love Tommy John, and listen, Tommy John combines patented, breathable fabrics with innovative design. It's fantastic, guys. It's going to hold everything together softly yet securely, and it never rides up, and that's the real key. Plus, it's backed by the best pair you'll ever wear, or its free guarantee. Tommy John, no adjustment needed. Save 20% on your first order with code Miami at TommyJohn.com right now. That's Miami for 20% off at TommyJohn.com.
A texter writes in here, that useless sound montage was weak.
Is that guy?
How dare you blaspheme against the useless sound?
Don Le Batard.
What was the saying that Tyron Mathau said, Honey Badger don't care.
Matthew.
That happens with age, man. That's exactly what just happened to me. I made Walter Mathau a cornerback for the Arizona Cardinals.
Stugats.
Is he still with us?
No.
That is a hole in the Cardinals secondary. They have got somebody who's been dead for 16 years back there. It's like having Antonio Cromartie.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Cue the Victory Donuts, Pennzoil Synthetics, and Joey Logano lead the pack to the finish at Phoenix International Raceway. It's a good day to be driving with Pennzoil. Here's your SportsCenter update. Seahawks over the Patriots last night, 31-24. Russell Wilson, incredible. 348 yards, 3 touchdowns. Seahawks improve to 6-2-1. Patriots fall to 7-2. Week 10 concludes tonight. Monday Night Football, Bengals and Giants, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. I love the G-Man. And finally, at an SNL rap party, Dave Chappelle performed Radiohead's Creep with some help from Lenny Kravitz on the drums. Hey, sports fans, if you're headed out to watch the game and you need a fill-up, why not join the Fuel Rewards program and earn rewards on Shell Fuel? Members save on their Shell fill-up every single day, so sign up for free today at fuelrewards.com/ESPN. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Allison, I know he's a difficult get, but can you try for Chappelle? I'm sure you've been trying for Chappelle. He crushed it on Saturday Night Live. I wonder how much they got fined for some of the stuff that he did on Saturday Night Live, because Louis C.K. did the same thing. He went on Saturday Night Live and he showed you what edgy was, and Saturday Night Live fancies itself as edgy within network limits, and you just saw what it was like, much like you saw when Jimmy Kimmel one time sat in the Monday night booth for 10 minutes, and you were like, oh, okay, that feels vastly edgier than what this usually is in terms of edginess. Chappelle did that on Saturday in a way that was really fun.
I'm reading an article here saying that NBC fully expects fines, should expect fines, but they haven't released those fines yet, but they're coming.
NBC is a network television station, so they are regulated by the FCC. That's why some networks on cable can get away with more. However, it's not the first time they flirted with that line. They've dropped the N-word this season before. They've dropped the S-word this season before. There was just more of it this episode.
They haven't dropped the P-word before, I don't think.
I think they have, actually, this season, yeah.
Well, he apologized to Lorne Michaels
he said, sorry,
after
Lorne.
making the Trump joke.
Yeah.
Grab him by the bleep. Yeah, Chappelle is great. So also great is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin really carried us in the useless sound montage. My favorite was the last one. His cadence was musical in nature.
Splash. They made the splash plays. We didn't make enough of them.
I love the way that he said that for some reason. Why do I love that so much? That he, it's just distinctive. You know who it is that's speaking, and he's saying nothing in a wonderful way.
Splash.
Mike Tomlin, what's your favorite Tom Hanks movie?
Splash.
Your favorite mountain at Disney?
Splash.
The zone I should avoid at SeaWorld if I want to stay dry?
Splash.
Those brothers at Golden State?
Splash.
Man, he's got all the answers. This guy, he's quick.
Splash.
Play that Kirk Cousins useless momentum nonsense again for the audience so that I can tell this story.
Football is a game of momentum, so you certainly want to capture the momentum and keep it, and if you lose it, which you're bound to lose at some point, try to fight like crazy to get it back.
All right. Fundamentally useless. There was a great moment in one of the games here that gives you your narrative goosebump stuff that you love, Stugats. I don't know if you saw it. I'm going to keep the teams out of it for the moment so that you can realize how useless momentum actually is.
Okay.
I'm hoping you didn't see this moment.
All right.
But it was a cool moment. There was a guy who got his ankle hurt on offensive line, and he's clearly an emotional leader type of guy, and his teammates were really hurt for him, and even the guys that he was blocking were coming up to him as he was being carted off, sitting there injured pretty seriously and were showing him respect on the opposing team. And as he left the field on a cart, incapacitated, he's banging on the side of the cart. Let's bleep and go! Let's bleep and go! He's just raging at them. He's like clearly an emotional leader on that team, and those guys like really rallied around him. Did you see this moment?
No, I have no idea, but I'm getting goosebumps just listening to you explain it.
Right, and so the momentum, right? Like somebody should carry the emotion of that to really throttle the opponent. They were inside the opponent's 10-yard line when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the next play needs to be an emotional, momentum-filling touchdown. But instead, Jay Cutler got stripped from behind, fumbled the ball. They lost the ball, didn't score, then lost 36-10 to an awful Tampa team. It was funny to watch. Jay Cutler was terrible yesterday. Somebody else is going to try him. Someone else is going to give him a try because half the teams in the league don't have someone even as good as he is.
No doubt. Someone's going to try him out. My fear is it's going to be the Jets. They do something like that. Like, I fully expect the Jets to have Jay Cutler or Tony Romo as their quarterback next year and give up first-round picks to get them.
Be thrilled if you get Romo. Be thrilled if you get Romo. Thrilled if you get Romo.
Yeah, they'll have to give up, like, first-round picks. I don't want the Jets doing that. No.
Why not? Why not give up a first-round pick if you think you're close, if you're trying to capitalize on a window?
You thought they were close when the season started? You thought that Fitzpatrick...
And I was wrong. I don't want Tony Romo, who's always hurt, who's won, one playoff game, maybe two, who's 36 years old. I don't want to give up draft picks to get Tony Romo. Nope.
I'm interested to see what happens with quarterbacks this offseason because the draft class, I mean, the Browns can't even get 0-16 right. Like, it's a bad quarterback draft class.
Man, you should be thrilled if you get Tony Romo. I don't understand what you're doing there. Tony Romo is 100 times better than what you have at the quarterback position. Before this season, I laughed at you guys because you guys were telling me how the Jets were a piece away, that their skill position guys were so good. We had this argument because you guys were telling me how this should be a season of great expectation for the Jets, that the only problem is that Ryan Fitzpatrick has never played in a playoff game because he's never good enough to get a team to the playoff.
Right. But why would I want a quarterback who's going to be 37 next year, who's coming off back surgery, and it's his second one?
Because he's really good.
Yeah, Stu Gatz, if you get Tony Romo this offseason, you've made an offseason
splash.
You surprised me there.
Producing himself.
You caught me. He's producing himself. That was amazing. That was amazing to watch in real time.
Splash.
Do you have anything else? Or is that all you got in your arsenal? Feel free. Feel free if you've got anything else.
Splash.
It's so stupid.
Don't forget, you can hear more of my sons Dan and Stu weekdays starting at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPNU.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. Today on the show is Stefan Yavel, Field Yates, and myself. Well, we bortle our way through an entire Week 10 recap. What's real, what isn't, who's banged up, who's not. It's all about Zeke, my friends. His world, we just live in it.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with a Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. Guest on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. Cowboys owner and general manager Jerry Jones says that quarterback Tony Romo will be active as Dak Prescott's backup coming up this week. Week 10 concludes tonight. Monday Night Football, Bengals and Giants, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. I love the G-Men. And finally, Matt Valk's new Rubik's Cube record of 4.74 seconds has already been destroyed by a robot that solved it in 0.637 seconds. What you got, Matt? For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
I'm getting a lot of concerned texts from people.
It's weird.
And a lot of people are tweeting us worried because they're watching on ESPNU and they see how I look. But I think the funniest thing that I'm getting, and I don't know what to make of this, maybe it's that people watch television passively or specifically watch sports television passively. A lot of people are asking about my sunburn. That would be the thing that you notice about what I got going on ESPNU is fairly flabbergasting. Kean Fahey is our football expert. We like being a little outside the box. He's got a funny accent, and he really knows football. He's going to be on with us Wednesday, and many people are concerned about Aaron Rodgers, but one of the things that he writes is that Aaron Rodgers is on pace to lose more yards to receiver error than any quarterback did last year. And I noticed yesterday, Stugatz, I noticed this weekend two things that explain to me a talent discrepancy in ways that you don't normally see in football. You can tell when a defense is fast. You can tell on rare plays when a wide receiver or running back is running away from the defense when you have a speed advantage. But usually speed advantages aren't very detectable to the human eye while you're watching football. But there were two things I saw this weekend that I was like, whoa. One of them was Davante Adams caught a ball that should have been an 80-yard touchdown. Not only was it not an 80-yard touchdown, he was chased down at the 50-yard line. He's not fast enough. And he had a big game yesterday.
Yep.
But that he would be one of the Packers' best receivers is really problematic for the Packers because he's not fast enough. Never mind the drops and the clumsiness and the sloppy route running. He's simply not fast enough. Like it should have been a lot of receivers outside of the giant receivers. Most of the receivers his size in the league would have turned that into something that would have been a much bigger play.
Right.
And he was tackled at the 50-yard line. And it made me think of the Alabama-Mississippi State game, something I went back on and kept watching. Mississippi State had a kick returner break free at the 25-yard line. So he's going one way, and he's going one way untouched, and all of Alabama's players are going the opposite way, and two of them were standing on the 20-yard line when he broke through the hole. Four of them caught him at the 50.
Wow.
Four of them. And I'm like, they're playing a different sport than everyone else. Now, I know Mississippi State's not that good this year, and Dak Prescott, as good as you've seen that he is this year, you should look at what Mississippi State is doing this year to see how good he was last year. But I couldn't believe how quickly, and then they explained one of those guys is Alabama's starting cornerback, and he's, and so, of course, they've got so many pros, but the speed was just... That shouldn't happen. From a standstill, four guys caught a guy who had a head-running start with all the momentum, and they all had to change directions, and they caught him 30 yards later.
It shouldn't happen, but with Aaron Rodgers, don't you think? Because he's done a lot of winning with those exact wide receivers.
Oh, no. It's not with those exact.
Nelson, Cobb, and Adams?
No, it's Greg Jennings. It was James Jones, who wasn't good, but it was a different set of receivers that he had his big seasons with. Now it's an injured Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, but I think it's more to do, for me at least, like, he's got Ty Montgomery playing running back. They have no defense. Like, Aaron Rodgers is playing fine. The rest of the team is a disaster.
Jordy Nelson appears to be a different player now post-knee injury.
He's not as fast.
He's not
as fast. He still had 12 catches for 126 yards.
And Davante Adams had a big game too, but they just don't have skill position speed. I mean, it's gone. They've turned Aaron Rodgers into a guy who's got to throw 50 times for 300 yards. It's all those 50-yard plays are gone from that offense. But let's get into something else here. Now, many of you don't like when I start talking race, and you don't like when I start venturing into the election. But keep in mind, I can't play this kind of sound for you from the opposite side because there is nobody in sports willing to take the stands that I'm just going to play for you now from Greg Popovich. We did this last week from Stan Van Gundy, and you can make the allegation that I don't play the other side, but nobody's talking like this on the other side. So here's Greg Popovich talking about the recent election in a way that's super dismaying.
Right now, I'm just trying to formulate thoughts. It's too early. I'm still sick to my stomach. And not basically because the Republicans won or anything, but the disgusting tenure and tone and all the comments that have been xenophobic, homophobic, racist, misogynistic. And I live in that country where half the people ignored all that to elect someone That's the scariest part of the whole thing to me. It's got nothing to do with the environment and Obamacare and all the other stuff. We live in a country that ignored all those values that we would hold our kids accountable for. They'd be grounded for years. And now we see that he's already backing off on immigration, on Obamacare, and other things. So was it a big fake? Makes you feel that's even more disgusting and cynical, that somebody would use that to get the base that fired up to get elected. And what gets lost in the process are African Americans and Hispanics and women and the gay population, not to mention the 8th grade developmental stage exhibited by him when he made fun of the handicapped person. I mean, come on. That's what a 7th grade, 8th grade bully does. And he was elected president of the United States.
There's nobody talking like that on the other side in sports. Otherwise, I'd play that for you, too. He had more sound here. Greg Popovich. Here is, and again, Stugatz brought this up last week.
Yeah.
He wishes that Stan Van Gundy had said some of that stuff earlier. He did not, and Greg Popovich didn't. They wandered into it, but they didn't come this strong.
I wish that all three of them, Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, Stan Van Gundy, I wish more coaches came out, because he was saying this stuff leading up to the election. So they knew what he was saying. They knew the campaign he was running on, and I wonder if it would have had an effect if a lot of coaches came out and...
No, it wouldn't have.
No?
No, it wouldn't have had any effect. But, one of the reasons that Stan Van Gundy didn't feel particularly brave and felt a little bit cowardly is because he didn't have his conscience cleared by being able to at least say it, even though it wouldn't have moved anybody. Here's a little more from Greg Popovich here.
I'm a rich white guy, and I'm sick to my stomach thinking about it. I can't imagine being a Muslim right now, or a woman, or an African American, an Hispanic, a handicapped person, how disenfranchised they might feel. And for anyone in those groups that voted for him, it's just beyond my comprehension how they ignore all that. And so my final conclusion is, my big fear is we are Rome.
So very strong comments, obviously, and there weren't a whole lot of white folks kneeling beside Colin Kaepernick when he started this particular conversation. But many of you, I got a lot of people writing in, many of you were celebrating Ernie Johnson's conversation on TNT, where he's a very nice man, a very decent man, and for 2 minutes he wandered into some realms that were hopeful and wanting to give a chance to this next period of time that we're entering. And I thought to myself, because one of the things that I said last week when I heard that sound, I was put off by the way that people were celebrating that sound, even as I like Ernie Johnson, and the sentiment is a kind enough one. I was put off because it's easy to always be asking others for forgiveness. It's easy to always be asking others to be hopeful when you're never the one feeling hopelessness. And he's surrounded by black guys on that set, but he ain't surrounded by hopeless black guys on that set. He's surrounded by guys who knew once upon a time what it felt like to be hopeless and black. But Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, and Shaquille O'Neal are no longer that. Charles will tell you himself, the toughest decision I make every day is whether I'm staying at the Ritz or the Four Seasons. So I saw, Richard Deitch, from Sports Illustrated, who always takes every easy position imaginable, just every easy position imaginable. All he does is like, what's the easy thing that I can criticize and what's the easy thing that I could celebrate? I saw that he was celebrating what it is that Ernie Johnson said. But Ernie Johnson was giving a very privileged viewpoint. And even if you like him going into religion, even if you like the idea of him saying that he's praying for people, all he's doing by praying is hoping. The people here who are hurt the most are the hopeless. The act of prayer is hope, belief. It's still hoping. And what Popovich is articulating there is is a voice for those who feel pretty hopeless today. Was anybody else sort of, I can't say I was put off by what Ernie Johnson said, because it was nice enough. It's decent enough. It's just he doesn't know, and neither do I, by the way.
But don't you think Ernie knows that? It's still a respected broadcaster saying something that not many broadcasters would say.
But what is he saying, though? What I saw being celebrated, the saying of nothing. Like, I didn't think he was saying anything.
Oh, I thought people were celebrating someone saying something.
Like, what did he say? What did he actually say? I'm hopeful. Let's give him a chance. I'll pray for them. That's not substance. That's not. And again, I'm not being critical of Ernie Johnson. I'm being critical. Like, he's a decent man who said a decent thing. I'm being critical of the reaction to it as if it were applause worthy. It's just nothing. It's smoke. It doesn't mean anything. It's not the saying of anything. Although I guess you could say it's courageous in the modern age to speak up on behalf of your God, I suppose.
But the messenger doesn't work for you in this particular case?
No, it's not. It's the message that doesn't work for me. The message combined with the messenger being celebrated, it's not
right.
It's what Popovich is saying has a lot more edge to it than what Ernie Johnson said.
Don Batard.
I'm going to a concert. The date is in my bedroom. Somebody has used the bidet and it doesn't look clean. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, how do I clean this?
Stugats.
So I'm staring at this. I got 4 faucets and this doesn't look clean to me. And I've got a date outside and I'm like, that's kind of gross. That she would come in here and there would be a dirty bidet. She's going to accuse me. I don't know how to use the bidet. I turn one of the fountains right in my face. Gets my shirt all wet.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
Get in touch with the show anytime through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed at Le Batard Show at Stugat790. Dan, it is time for Straight Talk. It's presented by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost.
You can reach the show at Le Batard Show on Twitter. Hey, you fat blimp. Maybe if those coaches concentrated more on coaching, they'd have better records.
Is that guy?
How much better do you want Greg Popovich's record to be?
Pretty damn good.
Just lost another listener, Le Batard. Is ESPN a sports network or the new MSNBC? I just want sports.
Is that guy?
Greg Popovich and other social justice warriors like you don't realize their public opinions are what won Trump the presidency.
Is that guy?
Reader writes in here, by the way, Ernie Johnson invoking religion is much more complex nowadays than Popovich calling Trump a racist. Is it? Because I feel like Popovich, based on the reaction I'm getting here, is getting scorched pretty good for what he said. Did Ernie Johnson get scorched pretty good for invoking religion? I thought he was viewed as courageous for invoking religion. I didn't hear a whole lot of people saying anything negative about what Ernie Johnson did.
I heard nothing but applause for Ernie Johnson.
And I know it's more complicated now to cite God in public than it used to be.
I guess it all depends on who you're following on Twitter, because I don't see anybody criticizing Greg Popovich, and just in terms of how it's consumed in the media, that would seem to be as safe, or if not safer, than what Ernie Johnson did, who got hit pretty hard from some voices out there in the media.
Who did he get hit by?
I saw Pablo, while complimenting how nice Ernie Johnson is. There's something with the message. I've seen Bomani get out there. There are voices out there that I respect that say that this is an example, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is an example of a white person sharing an experience that's not the same as minorities in this country.
Because you might be right in terms of the people who we're following, but I'm basing it on listener reaction right now to what Popovich said, and it was very hostile.
Yes, listener reaction is a completely different ballgame. But when you're a public figure, like, that's what you're more worried about. You're not worried about, Tom on his way to work in Green Bay.
But there is a disconnect here. There's a disconnect here in terms of Popovich's message. Yes, this did play in the media. This is what we just saw happen. Popovich's message is received better by the sports media than Ernie Johnson's message is, and the media is not representative of the public on this. As you just saw, based on the coverage of that election leading up to that election, where the media got everything wrong and clearly did not have the pulse of the public, not even with data. So there is a disconnect here on that stuff. But you're just talking about media reaction. I'm talking about general reaction. I'm not assuming that the media speaks for you.
General reaction, I mean, it's pretty toxic around Pop's comments.
But I'm guessing also with Ernie Johnson, I'm guessing he got it just in terms of general reaction. I mean, there's two things that are going to evoke emotion from people. It's going to be religion. It's going to be politics, right? I'm guessing Ernie got some of it.
Yeah, religion sometimes is just a non-starter for some people.
I felt like Ernie Johnson's comments were met with universal applause. Regardless, let's change the subject to lighter issues here. My father just called back. He just called back a moment ago from a phone call that he got from this station on Friday. He's like, yeah, did someone call me from there? And we were calling him on air. We do this all the time. My father never knows. These are like the conversations that I have with my father all the time. I don't know where this is going to go. I implore ESPNU, I implore Mike Ryan to be near the dump button here, because these conversations I have with my father are, he doesn't know that he's being aired. So go ahead, Mike. Go ahead and call my father now. And I haven't talked to him about the Dolphins victory. He hates the Dolphins. And so this should be funny. This could be funny. This has the possibility.
Hello?
Papi!
Yeah.
The Dolphins!
What do you mean the Dolphins? Kiko was the one that made it happen. Never mind the Dolphins. They almost lost that game.
They won, Papi.
Kiko, he won. The kid from Hialeah, the capital of the black beans and rice. Kiko Alonso. I knew that he was going to do something this year. There you have it, buddy. He clinched the win for the Dolphins. And then everybody was talking about this guy. What's the quarterback? The Dolphins has, I forgot his name, Ryan Tannehill. Everybody said he was great. How about Kiko? Kiko.
You finally got a Hispanic player.
This is the first time since 1972, Manny Fernandez, that they have a Latino player. Kiko is the man, buddy.
Oh, so you must be very torn because you hate the Dolphins, but Kiko is a Hispanic.
That's it. Kiko is the X factor that you saw it last night. The guy got that intersection and ran all the way down for the winning touchdown. I don't even was talking about Tannehill. Come on. He almost lost the game. If Kiko doesn't make that intersection there, we'll be talking today about, oh, boy, we're close, but we lost, They got it. Nobody's talking about Kiko. Everybody's talking about Tannehill.
I think Kiko's from Massachusetts or Connecticut.
Nah, he's a product of Hialeah. He was raised in Hialeah. A lot of black beans and rice.
I don't think that's true, though. I think you're making that up.
I'm not making that up, buddy. I'm in close contact with Kiko. Are you kidding me? Kiko is the man. Used to be Jose Flacco. Now it's Kiko Alonso.
Jose Flacco.
What's happening, huh? Yeah?
All right. Well, you sound happy. I'm surprised.
Well, it's Kiko. That's the reason I'm happy. First time since 1972 that the Dolphins have
you mentioned that already. You already mentioned that. All right.
Let it marinate. Since 1972, that's about 50 years. Kiko is the man. They should build a statue for Kiko in front of the Dolphins Stadium there.
All right. Very good. Gracias, Papi. Te quiero.
Bye. Te quiero. Bye.
That is Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable networks.
Stugatz's weekend observations next.
Don Le Batard.
How much does the watch cost, Ludacris? How much?
I don't know. I got it for free. That's a good question.
Stugatz.
That's an indelicate question, right? You don't ask a woman what she weighs, and you don't ask a hip-hop star what his jewelry's worth, do you?
That's why he let me ask this question.
You really don't.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. Cowboys owner and general manager Jerry Jones says that quarterback Tony Romo will be active as Dak Prescott's backup this week. Week 10 concludes tonight. Monday Night Football, Bengals and Giants, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. And finally, the classically handsome Robert Redford has announced his retirement from acting. It's a sad day. The SportsCenter is brought to you by Barbasol. America, you're looking good. You're shaving with Close, comfortable Barbasol shaving cream. Close Shave America. Close Shave Barbasol. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
I saw a movie of his the other day. I don't remember the name of it. He was Lost at Sea. He made it recently. It got 90+ on Rotten Tomatoes, and I didn't like it very much. Hell or High Water is really good, though. Woo! It's two different thoughts I just had there. I was trying to cover my tracks because you guys think I think all movies are bad. Hell or High Water with Jeff Bridges was tremendous.
Was it really?
Yes, one of the best movies I've seen in a while.
What's your favorite Redford movie? Because mine is The Sting. I love that movie. The Sting is such a great movie, and The Natural, of course.
Of course, The Natural is.
Oh,
what's the name of that movie I'm thinking of? He was Lost at Sea, and I just thought all of it got done better by Tom Hanks in Castaway.
All is Lost?
Yeah. A tweeter writes in, "Hey, Fatface, can you teach your father English, please?" That one happens all the time. My father came to this country not speaking any English. He's got a master's degree in industrial engineering. He is doing television and radio with me in his second language. He's smarter than you are. Let's go ahead and do Stugatz's weekend observations.
It is time for Stugatz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Dan the Pack is whack. Dan,
you did.
Football is back. Falcons, Eagles, Saints, Broncos, Cowboys, Steelers, Chargers, Dolphins, Seahawks, Patriots, Jets, Rams. Jeff Fisher will get to 8-8 if it kills him and kills football. The Rams have a better record when they don't score touchdowns. I can't write a better joke. Packers still winless since Mike McCarthy stood us up on Halloween. Clemson Tigers, when you continuously play with fire, eventually
you're gonna get burned.
Bingo. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Not Washington. Unfortunately, you know who's always there? Nick Saban. Louisville, welcome back. Hawks, Clippers, NBA Finals, collision course. Everyone knows how to use DeMarco Murray except Chip Kelly, Marcus Mariota. Growing up right in front of our eyes. Packers offense shouldn't be fighting the Titans defense. The defense they should be fighting is their own. Clemson's luck finally ran out. Minnesota Vikings are what we thought they were. Adam making a case for Coach of the Year. Terrell Williams can scoot. Tyrell, the Gazelle. Has anyone in the history of civilization had as many stressful Sundays as Phillip Rivers? I get stressed just watching Phillip Rivers. Kiko Alonso starting to pay dividends. I dare anyone to name a better football player than Zeke Elliott. Julio Jones, if you're the best wide receiver on the planet, you have to make one of those catches. If I were an NFL coach, Julio Jones probably wouldn't be on my hands team. Run the ball. Stop the run. The Philadelphia Eagles went back to basics. Carolina Panthers, meltdown. Clemson was living on borrowed time.
Again with Clemson? I mean, what do you
mean? Hey, living on borrowed time.
Right.
You know, you play with fire, Dan. You know what's going to happen. You're going to get burned eventually. AFC West, best division in football. Kirk Cousins, some set of teeth. Great choppers. Andrew Wiggins can ball. Dak Prescott made Jerry Jones's decision for him. Tony Romo, so close. Yet, so far, Clemson's clock struck midnight.
Oh.
I just assumed Gronk was always concussed. His baseline test is probably just him drooling anyways. Gronk's concussion protocol test. What's your favorite number? 69.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good. Zeke can scoot. Broncos, Saints, one for the ages. Jets, Rams, one for the ages. The Stone Ages. Something looks right. Some things look right. They feel right. Steelers, Cowboys are one of those things. Kevin Durant says Greg Oden calling himself the biggest bust in NBA history is ridiculous. KD, the only opinion I care about on Greg Oden is Greg Oden's. KD, stay in your lane.
Really?
Dolphins, firmly entrenched in the conversation. Dan, we are just 5 months away from the start of the college basketball season. It ain't pretty. So you know what the Chiefs do? They win ugly. Just spotted JT Barrett's moving vans bringing his stuff to the Heisman House. November, please end so I can start looking at Marcus Mariota again. Dan, you know who Russell Wilson is starting to look like?
No.
Any guesses?
No.
He's starting to look like Russell Wilson. Clemson's bus went under 50 miles per hour and got blown up by a maniacal Dennis Hopper who was missing a thumb. I have only one wish today. That dance.
Wait a minute.
What happened? What happened?
What just happened? You were just doing useless Clemson cliches, and then all of a sudden.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, very good.
All right. I have only one wish today. That Dan says Tom Brady is on the decline. $72 million for 99 yards passing. Houston Texans. Brock on. One of our grid of death punishments should be watching Case Keenum and Bryce Petty on an endless loop. Braves trying to excite the fan base, headed into a new ballpark by signing two pitchers, Bartolo Colon and R.A. Dickey, who are a combined 84 years old.
Yeah.
Dan, those are the weekend observations.
Catch more of the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats, 10 to 1 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPNU.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We hear from Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers. Trevor Daley of the Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins stops by. And so does Charlie Coyle of the Minnesota Wild.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Here's your SportsCenter update. Tampa Bay wide receiver Mike Evans sat during the national anthem Sunday because Donald Trump was elected as president of the United States this week. Week 10 concludes tonight. Monday Night Football, Bengals and Giants, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. And finally, Atlanta Hawks guard Dennis Schroeder's hookah bar racked up 21 health code violations. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. Domonique Foxworth, who hosts NFL Nation on ESPN Radio Sundays from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, joins us right now in studio to give us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, half the cost.
Tweeters pointing out that Carolina's schedule hasn't actually been that hard, and furthermore, the Panthers have lost 4 games by a field goal, all 4 at the buzzer. 1 a miss by Gano, 3 game winners by KC, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. No luck in 2016. They were very good in their one-score games last year. I do think that gets overlooked all the time when we do this merit-based studying of the standings, where we just sometimes you're really lucky and sometimes you're really unlucky. Who do you look at in the sport these days and say, okay, that team is like San Diego feels a little bit like that. San Diego with injuries and the amount of time they've led this season, they feel like a good team that's been really unlucky.
I don't know. I mean, the truth is no one knows. Like football there's so many variables in a football game, whereas like basketball, soccer, hockey, lacrosse, those are all kind of the same game. and everyone is blocking, tackling, passing, doing all the same things. But in football, it's really made up of a bunch of little games. So like the game that the offensive line and the defensive line is playing is an entirely different game than the corners and the receivers and the quarterback and the safeties. And so there's all this going on and these complex game plans going into this, which is why no one can ever really guess, which is why the segment that you guys do with the celebrity prognosticator is so genius, because it exposes that even the people who know a lot about football, as I do, and can break down the film, there's no way to predict how 1,000 different variables will break in the course of a game.
I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy football the way I've always enjoyed football, but we've said this for years. I have no earthly idea what I'm watching when I watch it. I just don't know. I have no idea what I'm watching on Sundays.
Do you? Because you played, Domonique. So do you in real time, without the study of film,
yes.
In real time, do you know, for example, if the offensive guard is having a good game?
If I'm watching the guard the entire game, then yes. But there's still some things that I can't even understand without the help of watching film. So the things that I can watch in the game is alignment of players, where the safeties are, splits by the running backs and receivers, and I can predict what type of players are going to happen, and I can see the chess match of how people will adjust to blitzes or how the defenses are going to adjust to taking away the quarterback scramble, these sorts of things. I can pick those things up in game, but even someone like me or someone who's much more versed than I am in football, you don't understand it all until after you watch, because like I mentioned, there are a bunch of different games going on, and you don't know who's winning each matchup. And also, when there are players that are losing or winning matchups, we often just say, oh, he's better. When in actuality, what happens many times is the coaches have not put their players, and so I've been on this Brock Osweiler defending tour, because when I watch the film of what they do, their coaches aren't giving him a great chance to succeed. Despite having all those weapons, they are not setting them up to be
I feel like
successful.
that's what's happening with the Packers offense.
Wait, but hold on a second. Maybe there's a reason they're not giving him a chance to succeed. They're seeing him every day in practice, and maybe the couple of times they've given him a chance to kind of air it out, he hasn't done well.
So I think there's what I'm saying. I'm not saying just let him loose.
Right.
I'm saying run plays. They've run a lot of kind of like 2-man basic route combinations. And when teams play them, because they're afraid of those receivers, teams play them like a lot of 2-man, 2 safeties high, and max coverages, and you're not going to beat anybody with that. And I haven't seen them adjust to that or find ways. And another thing that I think is like a problem, a scourge in this league as far as coaches are concerned, is they no longer seem to want to create dilemmas or packages of plays that create dilemmas for specific players. So oftentimes what I see is they'll play action and throw a deep post, which doesn't always make sense, because if you have a good running game, the defense is going to adjust by putting another defender in the box, which puts somebody in the deep middle of the field. And then you're going to run a deep post. The only person who doesn't have run responsibility right there is the safety in the corner. So why run a deep post? What you should be doing is, once you get them to adjust, run a route that's like a deep corner, a deep over, a tight end route. The Falcons ran a great play several weeks ago where they ran a corner route with the fullback from the backfield. And why that's smart is because that's creating a dilemma for the linebackers and D-line. So linebackers and D-line are responsible to stop that run, and they come up hard to stop the run. You have a corner route coming out of the backfield to the fullback, and you see what I'm saying? You're creating a dilemma there, whereas there is no dilemma for the free safety. The free safety has no run responsibility, so why run a post directly into him? So, I'm a former player, so my bias is very clear, but I do get frustrated when I listen to sports radio or watch sports TV, and the default is to blame the players all the time. And it's mostly because people who are talking about it don't know what they're looking at.
Well, it's not just to blame the player. What I've found, the part that exasperates me is it's when there are successes,
right.
It's credit the coach.
Right. Yes.
All the time I'm watching and – oh, you got to credit offensive line coach, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It is unusual to me, the amount of leadership.
I mean, Malarkey's a great example of, not Malarkey, I'm sorry. McCarthy is a great example of that, because he's one who's been himself blaming players. Like last year, their problem was Eddie Lacy's too fat. At halftime of a game this year, he said that our receivers can't get open. You have a lot of talent, and these guys are in the NFL. You have all-time great quarterback and NFL quality receivers, and decent enough players everywhere else. Like, it's not always their fault.
Their offense seems rudimentary with that quarterback. It doesn't seem like they're doing much to help their receivers get open with the route trees.
But with that said, you're right. But it gets back to, like, we don't really know what we're watching because we're so fixated on the quarterback and the wide receivers. They've got their fourth-string running back in, and their defense has just been, just killed with injuries. I mean, I think 3 or 4 of their original guys who started week 1 of the defense are actually started this past week. So.
And that's when the coaches earn their money, and they have not been doing so. But the difference between talent is not as large as you think. People can succeed. The Patriots are always a good example. They're not all that talented as individuals on offense, and I'm including Tom Brady. Tom Brady's really accurate. That's what he does really well, and Gronk is special. But Gronk is kind of the only person on that offense is special, but somehow they make it happen because they're one of the teams that week to week create a new game plan based on the team that they're facing, and they create offensive and defensive packages that are specific to put players in dilemmas.
The praise is pouring in. Shut this gas bag up. How are you letting Foxworthy,
the comedian,
talk X's and O's? This is hurting my ears. What kind of show is this that you guys are doing? Let's talk about Gronk taking hits from Chancellor last night. Let's talk about that. Domonique gets the show, so he's fully happy to do the show the way that we do the show, but it's always good to have someone in who's got more knowledge than us, which isn't very hard to do. When it comes to, but you did lose the audience.
Oh, yeah. This is not what I want to do. You asked me the question. Last time I was on this show, I blew everything up because that's what this show is about. That's who I want to be.
Okay, we'll get there.
You didn't lose me. I can promise you that.
We'll get there. You guys, Mike Ryan was eating that up.
Oh, I love
Mike Ryan was swallowing it.
I love the show, man.
Yeah, right? Right? He was giving you football information, hugely informed football information there that went so deep that everyone drowned.
Do things I love. I love to see a guard pull man, and I love Domonique Foxworth talking sports.
I hate talking sports. So, I do Mike and Mike very often, and I never talk sports on their super sporty show. I talk social, I talk race, I make jokes, I attempt to blow their show up, but their show is more difficult to blow up. But I try to do the same thing that I've done when I've been on this show. But you came in, and you, as the head of this,
really, you let us be accountable. I let the players play, man. I let the players play.
I apologize. I take responsibility.
What happened? Why is Mike and Mike more difficult to blow up? Why is it hard to blow up their show?
Greeny always reins it back in.
Greeny is a ninja when it comes to moving. It's so impressive because it's something that you take for granted. It's a lot like offensive line play that you don't know when it's happening. And I'm coming in I'm going to say this and it's going to really be good. Then somehow before I know it, Greeny's turned me around, got me talking about something different. Next thing I know, I'm all the way back home in D.C. waking up the next morning damn, I never did get to ambush Golick with that question I had.
You can listen to all 3 hours of the Dan Le Batard Show on demand in the ESPN app, plus our Miami only hour that airs before the show. And now you can subscribe to our Best of podcast. It's all available in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. Guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Loan.
Thank you for listening to us. Minneapolis, ESPN Twin Cities 1500, and on ESPN 590 in Omaha, almost 400 stations nationwide. Domonique Foxworth with us. He's a contributing writer for The Undefeated, host of NFL Nation on ESPN Radio Sundays, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. So if you want football analysis, they chew it up pretty good after the day's events on Sunday. Mike, why were you asking me during the break? When's the last time I cooked a meal for myself? Why did that conversation come up?
Well, because Fats and Info just posed the question back here because I think it all stemmed from you casually mentioning that you had a cigar guy.
Weird.
That nobody really called out. And so Chris just wondered aloud, when do you think the last time Dan cooked a meal for himself was? And I theorized that, well, Dan has a really restrictive diet. So my guess is he actually cooks himself a lot of meals.
Hold on a second. Why is it weird that I have a cigar guy?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. Yep, it's weird. Yeah. I mean, you purchase the same cigars, and you mentioned to me during the break that you have multiple cigar guys, that you have more than one.
You don't think that's unusual? You think that everyone in America, Joe Schmo, has a cigar guy?
No. Okay. If you're a cigar person, though, you have someone you buy your cigars from. No, I didn't think everyone in America had a cigar guy.
You made the face like, is it weird?
Right, no, put that up on at Le Batard Show, please, on Twitter. Is it weird that Dan has a cigar guy that, as opposed to buying your cigars all over the place, that you?
Well, the more I think about it, maybe I'm coming off of that a little bit because like lots of people have a weed guy. So if you're, isn't
it the same thing? It's the same thing.
Except cigars are legal. I'm assuming you're smoking legal cigars.
Yes, I am.
Right, but you need to have. That's the point. You need to have a weed guy. It's at least right now, it's illegal in many states. So you need to have a guy. You can buy cigars in a store, any store.
No, but you can't buy these kinds of cigars just at any store.
That's the point. That you're smoking these kind of cigars is like you're kind of fancy, out of touch guy.
Wait a minute. Those are two different things. Fancy and out of touch are not
okay,
the
that's
same
not
thing.
Fair. You're not out of touch. You're fancy, though.
Right. Like fancy.
With
okay,
all your
I'll take fancy. I've got a bidet, not multiple bidets. I don't have bidets, plural.
I sent a text to Pablo after he was making fun of your bidet and told him that I have 3 bidets in my house and not one has been used.
Oh, you've never used the bidets?
I mean, who uses bidets?
Do you know how to use the bidets? Do you know?
It seems pretty straighthtroughford.
It'll change your life, man.
Yeah, you got to use that bidet.
You got to use it, man. You
Get
got
on
3.
that bidet, literally.
I'm good. Just take a shower. You're good. And what are you doing that you need to be like, baby wipes get the job done? How fresh do you need to be for between like the 12 hours that you're out?
Wait a minute. Do you think you're normal with baby wipes? Fancy out of touch guy? Because I'll tell you right now that
I have kids, so the baby wipes are plentiful.
Okay, but baby wipes, I don't think at Le Batard Show, Guillermo, put it on the poll. Do you use baby wipes? Yes or no? I'm guessing the majority of audience says no.
Yeah, baby wipes, I mean, the bidet is a lot more cost-effective, guys.
It's not as efficient time-wise.
The bidet?
Yeah.
Pretty efficient, man.
Takes 2 seconds.
Yeah,
you got to get up.
Take it from someone who visits his bidet quite regularly. It's not very time-consuming.
You have an all-in-one, like a toilet and bidet?
No. Come on.
So you get up.
Separate place.
You get up. Right.
Yeah,
so you get up.
You just kind of shuffle
from the
over.
toilet.
Yeah.
Shuffle over.
It's more of a shuffle.
Yeah, that's too much. I got things to do. I got 3 kids, man.
How far away is your bidet?
I got
a big bathroom
to do.
I got things to do, baby.
He's a cornerback. I would think he shuffles quickly, but still, I've got things to do. You've got 3 bidets in your house, and you've never used one of them?
No, and I don't think that's absurd. Like whoever built the house was they have all these fancy European appliances that when they break, it takes us forever to find and fix them, and they were probably fancy Europeans. I'm just a regular dude who just happened to run fast enough to be able to afford a fancy house.
Guillermo, put it up on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show, because Domonique doesn't think it's absurd. Is it absurd that Domonique has 3 bidets in his house and has never used one of them? Just yes or no. Is it absurd?
Well, it's not my house. I mean, my wife picked it out. I just paid for it.
Right.
So I would have not bought a house with bidets in it because I don't need bidets, but we have them. No one uses them.
But did you do the walkthrough? Like, did you have any? Like, were you looking at the houses with her?
Oh no, I did the walkthrough as you're supposed to, and I pretended like I was interested, but not. You don't have a strong opinion. You have to have enough opinion so that she knows that you care, but not too strong opinion. So
I'm familiar with marriage.
Yeah, too strong.
I think he was explaining that to me.
I'm explaining today.
Does your wife use the bidet, or the bidets go strictly unused?
I believe the bidets are dry. We got dry bidets in the crib.
So you don't even know if they work.
They do work. Well, they worked when we bought the house because that was all as part of its inspection.
So now rusty water would come out of them because the pipes haven't been used in so long, which defeats the purpose.
Well, I have heard a horror story of a gentleman who was on a date and went to try to clean a bidet and splashed him in the face.
Right in the face.
I'm terrified of bidets
you think it's self-explanatory, so did I. I thought it was self-explanatory, too, until I started fiddling around.
No, don't put your face by it.
Well, that's true. That was.
Right.
I mean, that's.
Don't look down the barrel.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever done. If you think that one through, the idea that I got sprayed from a fountain of spray. What was the sound that made Mike? What was the?
Oh no!
We were.
You're gonna bring this back.
Well, I need to bring it back.
It was 2 hours ago.
I know, but I thought.
Splash.
Yeah. Right in my face.
Splash.
Was it a selling point like the realtor? I'm guessing bidet is a big selling point. When you were walking, checking out the apartment.
No, I'm like him. The last apartment I had a bidet, and I never once used it. In fact, the only reason I used this bidet is because Pablo came over to the house and was like, you have one of those? And I'm like, I've never used it. I don't know what you're talking about. And then Pablo just guilted me into it, and then we did it together.
Don Le Batard.
Jeff Van Gundy looked like the guy at the gym who pees out of the bottom of his shorts.
Stugats.
Is that a wrong thing?
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugats on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. Tampa Bay wide receiver Mike Evans sat during the national anthem Sunday because Donald Trump was elected as president of the United States this past week. Week 10 concludes tonight. Monday Night Football, Bengals and Giants, 8:30 Eastern on ESPN. Love the G-Men. And finally, Dungeons and Dragons, Fisher-Price's Little People, and The Swing. Wow, shocking. Have been inducted to the National Toy Hall of Fame. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
The Swing is shocking to you?
Yeah, that and, well, Fisher-Price's Little People also fairly shocking to me. Yeah.
Didn't we deduce, or weren't we told the Stick is also in the Toy Hall of Fame? The Stick?
The Stick is.
Didn't we get into a raging argument with that, the guy who runs, the curator for the Toy Hall of Fame?
We did, yes. We did. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, that's easy. That's first ballot Hall of Fame. I mean, Fisher-Price's Little People? I don't know.
I have kids, small kids, who play with lots of toys, and they don't play with the Stick. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, the Stick is more than just a toy. It's a tool. It's a lot of things. It was once alive, which is kind of weird when you think about it also.
Yes, it's rare in terms of the Toy Hall of Fame as having been something that was once alive.
But is the Swing a toy? Feels like a ride.
Well, the reason I brought up a Stick is if the Stick is a toy, then the Swing is a toy.
Absolutely. If the Stick is a toy, Swing's a toy. I think the Swing is a toy. Like you derive some pleasure from it. Its only purpose is for play. I think the Swing is a toy.
Are there any sex toys in the Toy Hall of Fame, or is it just toys?
I could answer this without even looking it up. I'm going to say that's a hard no. Well, phrasing.
At Le Batard Show is where you vote on all of our polls. You did walk into that one. What are you pointing at, Stugotz, with one of your sausage fingers?
Polls.
Yeah.
At Le Batard Show, we will update our polls in just a second.
Splash.
Domonique Foxworth with us here on ESPN Radio. What do you make of Mike Evans sitting because Trump was elected?
I mean, I appreciate it. I'm one who's been in support of Kaepernick, and everyone, or a lot of people, criticize and say that he's not really enacting any sort of change. But I think that you underestimate how important it is to create these discussions. And I know people feel like discussion is not progress, but it is putting it in the public zeitgeist in our youth. It's impacting the way I think these guys are taking a position that so clearly says that they have responsibility for protecting the society that they think we deserve to believe, that we deserve to create. And I think that's something that young people feel, it's something that adults feel, and it causes us all to be more active and more aware of each other, hopefully. So I'm in favor of it. If that's how he feels, that's how that's what he should do. And I also have to try to be aware of my own personal biases, because had someone done this to President Obama when he was first elected, I'm pretty sure I'd be furious. I would try to, and
I don't love this.
Yeah.
I don't love what Mike Evans is doing, not just because it's copycatting, because it feels to me like it's diluting. What Colin Kaepernick was doing was actually original. Now, what? Anytime
anything happens,
that anything in politics happens that you disagree with, even understanding what the starting point is on his disagreement, it feels like a diluted version of the same thing.
I mean, that's kind of unfair to say that you are required not only to have a political stance, but you also must be creative. Like,
well, it's what I want for my celebration, so it's what I want for my protest too.
Agreed. But I agree that that's a valid argument, in that it does draw some attention away from Colin Kaepernick. But I think if it's something that you believe in, I don't think that you need to go home and draw up a better new more original way to protest. It's something that he believes in. I'm on board with him. I think that it's unfortunate because acts like that turn off the other side, which is terrible. And I said that I need to be more conscious of my own biases. So one thing that I remember when the riots, I guess in air quotes, happened in Baltimore after Freddie Gray, I was in Boston, and I remember I'm from Baltimore, so watching it on TV, I remember listening to the newscasters talk about how foolish it was for the rioters to like burn down their own CVS. And I was kind of enraged because if you truly believe that all men and women are created equal, then you must also believe that there is a confluence of events that would lead you to behave in such a crazy way. And you have to understand that the same thing is true. That's an act of desperation. When you have no other help, you have no other choice. You're desperate.
It's a cry for help.
So I'm trying my best, though it's hard, to think of the people who have voted for Trump, despite all the things that he said and done. They are in a position where they feel so desperate. Like, how desperate must you feel to make that decision? So I'm trying to apply some empathy. It's tough because it's a feeling that like black people and minorities often feel like they're required to assimilate. They're required to understand the other side. And so I'm not out here preaching like give them a chance to everyone, because I know that that's a hard thing to do. But for myself personally, I'm trying my very best.
That's well put. That's a good way to do it.
Understand what could cause somebody to feel that desperate. And I mean, I have theories on that, but I won't hijack the
to look
show.
past all the things
he said. That's a little late for that.
To look past all the things he said and still go to the booth and vote for him.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's interesting. I had not heard that espoused, especially coming from the viewpoint that he comes from. I had not heard the idea of trying to extend what is happening. The same thing, right? If people are rioting and burning down their neighborhood, it's a cry for help. And in here, there might be a cry for help, although I find it harder to recognize.
I mean, I think the best way I can say is like the world was turned upside down on these people. So it's a lot of working class people who grew up in a world where their fathers and mothers could provide for them with just a high school education. And they thought they could do the same thing, a decent middle class lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, they're adults and their jobs are gone because of technology and trade deals. And the technology and the trade deals are examples that are like Pareto optimal outcomes for our society. So there's an overall good from that for our society, but disproportionately that wealth is going to one area, which is that. I mean, I can understand that would frustrate me because it's not fair. A lot of them grew up in situations, again, where their parents had nothing but a high school education, and they did not have the access to these things.
That's why I liked Hell or High Water so much as a movie, because it was a movie about bank robbers, but it was also a movie about the banks robbing the bank robbers, and the idea of poverty as a generational cycle that gets handed down like a disease, like a family disease that you can't escape from. But one of the things that I find amazing, we talked about this last week, the idea of Trump as the model for the working class, or the symbol for the working class, is laugh out loud funny if created. Keep in mind, Warren Buffett has vastly more in common with the working class than Donald Trump does. Warren Buffett's second wealthiest man in the world now that, the Mexican peso has gone right into the toilet.
But I don't think, kind of to Dominique's point, it's how you deliver the message to the working class. They didn't really care who was delivering that message. Right. They were that desperate that they just wanted someone who was going to...
Somebody to deliver the message.
Yes.
I heard an analogy on NPR Politics podcast a couple of days ago about, they said that Trump was like a pop song, and that when you first hear it, at least for these people, when you first hear it, it sounds good because it's poppy and it's catchy. But then when you actually listen to the words, you're like, what are they even talking about? This doesn't make any sense, but it's too late. It's already caught you. And I think that's what happened for a lot of those people. That was a perfect analogy, because it's like they heard those messages, and as racist and xenophobic as some of them are, that speaks to people. And unfortunately, that is like a vestigial instinct in many of us to be tribal in that way. And we can pretend like we're going to live in some utopian society someday where we don't see color or we don't see race, but that's not in actuality. When things aren't going well for you, you want to blame the others. And often the others, in this case, the others should be the elite in the country, but instead it's a lot easier to blame the others who are the blacks and browns and females and those sorts of things. So it's very, very discouraging. But I think that empathy to me, it's like a long endurance race that there is no prize at the end. It's very lonely. It's very difficult, but you're better off having tried to push yourself through the discomfort that happens when you're kind of trying to learn someone else's perspective.
You care that Mike Evans didn't vote?
No, I don't. I've heard the Stephen A. stuff, and I heard that live. Actually, one of the guys in our office plays that all the time because he used to work there. And at the time, I was really offended by what Stephen A. was saying. Like, it just that type of stuff doesn't. I don't know. It seems like you're looking for something to discredit someone who may or may not have a valid opinion. You can't take one action. I could find one action in everyone's life. If we were to define everybody by their worst action, then no one would have anything. No one would have any credibility to say anything ever.
You can listen to the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats 10 to 1 Eastern on ESPN Radio, and you can watch on ESPNU.
Louisville heads to Houston to face a dangerous Cougar team on Thursday night.
47 yards right up the middle.
Coverage begins at 7 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper.